This is APR Rates Explained. Now, when you go to the bank or when you're trying to finance something, sometimes you'll see a figure called an APR. So today I'm going to tell you what an APR is. Now, it's actually simpler than you think. However, it is still a term that banks are required to use in certain scenarios. Let's just dive right into what an interest rate is. An interest rate is something that's attached to our loan, right? So if I go out and I get a loan, let's say I'm buying a car and I have a $10,000 loan. That $10,000 loan is gonna have an interest rate attached to it. So if I borrowed $10,000 and I paid it off in 12 months, I would have technically paid back $10,500. So $500 in interest is what it cost me. Now, that's a really clean example, okay? That example doesn't have all the little details like origination fees and all these little fees that can be attached to the loan. When they say $10,500 is what you're gonna pay, it's actually not the full amount, because then they have processing fees and they have an administrative fee and then they have a filing fee and then they have documentation fees and they have all these different fees that they try to attach to the loan. And guess what? That brings down that interest rate amount to a lower number. So in reality, you might pay back $11,000, but because technically you have a 5% interest rate, they can get you to believe that you're only paying 5%, but really you're paying closer to a 10% interest rate. So if you think that you're paying a 5% interest rate, you have to make sure that you understand all the additional fees and all the things that are gonna go into that loan in order for you to be able to access that capital. At a certain point in time, there was something invented called an APR, and that APR solves this problem for us. A lot of times you'll see that it's kind of like a really specific number. It's like, oh, the APR is 2.72%. It's like, how did they come up with that? Like, why didn't they choose 2.71? Why not 2.75? Or why not just bump it up to 3? You know what I mean? There's really specific numbers. They go way down in the decimals sometimes. And so that just allows you to have a clearer picture of what exactly is going on. That APR figure includes any fees, any sort of additional items that they're going to try to tack on to that interest rate in order to give you like a true interest rate. And so that true, maybe not an interest rate, but true cost of getting that loan is very important for us to understand, because hey, if we have a 5% interest rate on a $10,000 loan, $500 in fees that are going to get tacked on, well then our APR is 10%. So that's a pretty big difference, right? So if I'm expecting to only pay 5% interest on this loan, but now I'm paying 10% interest, maybe that loan doesn't make sense. Now, of course, maybe I'm using that loan in order to get a car. Maybe I'm buying a rental car, and then I'm going to use that rental car to generate passive income for myself, which by the way is really easy to do. Now, a lot of people, they use Turo and stuff like that. I personally do not like those platforms. I like to work with operators of rental companies directly, and I built those relationships to do that. So just as a quick example, me using that money to buy a car is going to make a lot more than 5% a year or even 10% a year. I'm going to make a lot more money than that, and I can use my cash flow to pay back this loan or this financing that I'm getting on the vehicle. And I want to make sure that I'm financing every single vehicle that I possibly can, because that allows me to invest into more assets, right? And they're all protected. It's a safe physical asset. It's not really going to go anywhere. Whereas capital, just cash, is not very valuable. Cash itself loses value very quickly, but assets and valuable items, they tend to go up in value. So I want to protect myself. Now back to the APR explanation. So APR allows us to understand all those little things. So now let's say I'm getting a credit card and my APR might be 12.72%. Now that figure right there is going to include every single fee that I'm paying on that card. And so by understanding APR versus interest rate, I'm going to be a more informed investor. I'm going to be a more informed business person, because now I understand that I need to calculate using the APR, not just the regular interest rate. The regular interest rate does not do anything for me. It does not fit my calculations. If you're calculating based on investment performance and you want to get the real numbers, you have to make sure that you're asking for the APR. If they're not giving it to you, you have to make sure that you're calculating all those fees. You can calculate your own APR. You guys know how to do that already. You take the interest rate, you add on any additional fees. So a quick example, again, $10,000 loan, right? If our interest rate is 5%, that means that we're going to be paying $500. So let's just calculate all of our fees first. So we have $500. right? Then we have, let's say, a $100 processing fee, and then they have a $50 filing fee. So we've already spent $150 on fees. Let's say we spend another $50 on some sort of administrative fee. Now we're $200 in. Now let's say we spend another $200 on an origination fee. So now we're $400 in just on fees. And our interest rate was gonna cost us about $500. So if we're paying $500 on the original principal amount, which was $10,000, we're paying $500. So now we have 500 plus 400. So a total of $900 that we're paying in fees. We know that we're paying $900 in fees and they're not giving us our APR. We can just calculate it ourselves. We can take $900 and divide it by $10,000. And that gives us our 9% APR amount. Even without the bank telling us, even without anybody calculating it for us, we simply did the math for ourselves and we were able to calculate, hey, this is exactly how much this loan is gonna cost me. So now is it worth it? So now you need to compare, okay, I'm actually gonna be paying a 9% APR, technically, based on my calculations, or at least an estimated 9%. But how much money am I gonna make off of this $10,000 loan? How much money is it gonna bring in for me? And does that still make sense? So if I'm investing into vending machines, or I'm investing into Bitcoin mining, or I'm investing into e-commerce stores, or Forex trading, or exotic cars, whatever I'm investing into with that credit card, I need to understand what cash flow is coming in, because we just calculated the exiting cash flow. We have 9% a year. So you divide that by 12 months and you're gonna know exactly how much you're paying every single month in interest. Then I need to know how much cash flow is coming in if I literally just invest that entire $10,000. I'm gonna pull it off of the credit card and I'm gonna invest it. If I invest it into X investment, how much is that gonna produce? At least an estimated amount. It's always really, really hard to predict specific amounts of how much you're gonna make. So you always wanna make sure that you get a ballpark range and then just shoot for the most likely scenario. I don't like to estimate the worst scenario and I don't like to estimate the best scenario. I like to go for the most likely, which is usually right down the middle of that range. And so if I understand that I have $200 a month that I'm making on this investment, right? And so if I'm making $200 a month, that's 2% a month, which is still pretty good. 2% a month is gonna give me 24% a year. And if I'm paying 9% a year, so 24% minus 9%, I'm left with a 15% profit annually just because I made that investment. And I use that money to invest, to generate cash flow, not on things that I just wanna have, not on fun toys, but on business investments that allow me to grow my investment portfolio. That is what an APR is. Make sure you're calculating it correctly. It is not the interest rate. It's partly the interest rate, but you also have to add everything else that goes into the cost of that loan. All right, guys, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.